one thing I think about is, what is the structure of society? How does society coordinate and operate in these new systems? And I am not somebody who votes democracy because I want to suck on the teat of the government. I believe the government is great. When I've rationally gone through every form of governance, I've come to the conclusion that there will always be hierarchies. And we have a range of hierarchies now, from full dictatorships to Western liberal democracies to halfway houses. I would hate to burn down one system and to be replaced by something worse. I would hate to burn down a Western liberal democracy and it evolves into a horrible dictatorship. I don't know what comes. Based on what you're imagining, how do you see governance and structure in society coordinate?
Yeah, and what I would say is you step in landmines often because of that, and so do many other, actually, Bitcoiners and other people in it, because our frameworks for what we call a democracy, what we call capitalism, what we call communism, what we call libertarianism, our frameworks, Western liberal democracy, are actually all wrong because we've never had a decentralized, secure.
That's fair.
There's no.
What do you mean by step on landmines? Do you mean make mistakes, or
when I say you'll contribute to a conversation that'll polarize a different group?
Yes,
because that group is looking at through their framework, and they believe their own framework because of something in the past is the right one, and this believes this, good, yeah. and so it just polarizes we don't actually have a word for what this will look like yet.
By the way, I believe I have a responsibility to stand on landmines all the time. Yeah. For every person who says, "Oh, he's an idiot," he thinks it's like there's a group of people who also say, "Oh, I agree with him," or "I want to have that discussed." The role of this is that we step on landmines and have these conversations. So
I love that.
Yeah.
So let's go through some of those. Let's say a Western liberal democracy. Yeah. You believe in that structure. In a Western,
I believe it's the best we have.
Okay, but in a Western liberal democracy, that inflation is most of government's revenue, and you don't have a vote in inflation. Do you have a vote that counts?
Yes, I believe I do.
How? But now explain that. How? I
believe I have a shitty vote whereby I cannot change that one thing that you said there, but I have a vote that does draw I believe I have a vote that maintains and keeps us away from being a dictatorship.
Okay, I disagree with you.
Okay,
and here's why I disagree with you. Because if that rate of theft has to increase, what ends up happening at the next stage of that is what ends up happening is you turn into a dictatorship. And you turn into a dictatorship because people are so hurting from that. They vote to remove their individual rights and freedoms.
Yes. Which we see
with the dictator that tells them it's a different person's fault.
But we do have I can go down to London and I can protest openly and freely in front of Downing Street, in front of government, in front of Whitehall.
You could have done that in Germany too, pre the 30s.
Of course. But at the moment, I do have that ability. I don't have that ability in China at the moment. I'd be thrown in jail. And I do have that ability. And if it gets too bad, maybe you can stir up a revolution. Maybe you can fight back. What I'm saying is, I think our democracy is shit, but it's better than a lot of what people around the world have.
So all that's happening, and I don't agree, I don't disagree with all around the world.
Yeah.
I totally, these authoritarian states that actually are empowered by the way that we do conduct business. Mm-hmm. They're empowered by that because you create this, and Alex would have talked about this, by protecting the core, and you drive destitution and you're robbing other societies, then you're actually funneling money into the dictator to be able to control their societies. So when you look around the other parts of the world and you realize it's actually the opposing image of what you believe you have.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
And then because it's all based on a theft.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah.
And so now keep going on that, and now keep going inside your country, and you realize that 2% theft isn't enough anymore. and maybe people didn't notice 2% theft. It's like somebody walking into your house and stealing 2% of your stuff. You didn't really notice.
It was insidious.
Yeah, but it happened every year, more and more stuff. And you could, and maybe some of the people could escape and they could make more than the 2%.
Well, I think we were gaslighted into believing inflation was part of a growing economy.
Yeah, but again, it's based on theft.
Yeah.
And then it can't be 2% anymore. It has to be 3%. Then it has to be 4%. Then it has to be 10%. And then 10 or 15%, you start noticing, a lot of my stuff is missing out of my house. What happened? And you vote for somebody who will, I'm going to fix the system. And what they do is typically they tell you they're going to fix the system from the same system, and they take more control. They take away your individual rights and freedoms, like you saw in Nazi Germany, like you see in any system that's based on theft.
Yeah.
It has to get worse and worse. So the mirage of the liberal democracy is something that, and I even hate saying this, but
Say it.
it was based on a time window where it didn't look as bad as it looks, and that time window gets worse and worse and worse. Yeah. And so when you say I believe in something that was based on a time window of less theft when we benefited from it, it still had massive repercussions for other nations in the world. But when we benefited from it, and now it has more and more theft, all you're doing is mistaking where it goes. You're not looking at the time window at the change in human nature and how we all will vote away our individual rights and freedoms. Like even if you look at Trump versus Biden, and the Capitol Hill, what happened on January 6th, if you look at if Trump stayed in, do you think laws would have changed to protect him?
Of course.
Of course. Do you think people would have voted to allow those laws to change?
Of course.
Of course. So we're susceptible. We are susceptible in people telling us that they can fix it and removing our rights and freedoms as a result. And if you have a system based on that, then the money and the power of the system make us more susceptible. And many people will race to that system and see themselves as avenging the right path at the expense of all the other people that are bad. And that's where these things break down. So the words we have to describe what this will look like are based on structures that couldn't actually function properly, couldn't allow the abundance gained from technology to be able to flow to people all over the world.
Jeff, this is probably like the fourth time we've done this, fifth time?
Yeah.
Yeah. And previously, you and I have made shows. The first one, I think, was just based on your book on deflation and why deflation is so bad, and gradually layered in more Bitcoin and more money. I don't think we've ever covered the political layer to this extent. Is this something you've connected the dots with recently?
No, always.
It was always there.
Yeah,
it was always
yeah.
there. Yeah, because I think in some ways, like, I've fought the battles of trying to defend democracy or being a status cuck, all that stuff over and over again. But like, this is, I don't know about you, Danny, but this is like the best explanation I've had of.
It's very good, yeah.
Yeah, it's the most compelling argument I've had of why
your vote doesn't matter.
Why your vote doesn't matter. And I kind of know it doesn't matter. Like, but ultimately it doesn't matter. It's the best argument I've heard so far. So what now? Is essentially, are we voting orange?
So this new framework, we're making, so again, you have two systems. One is based on a lie. And one is based on truth. We know that's true, right?
Yeah.
And anybody could audit this system and run their own node and see that this one's based on truth. And anybody could. I do. You do, right? Running your own node is actually seeing that, and it's open source, and anybody could see it's based on truth, and everybody can see this one's based on a lie. What would the emergent society look like? If you had something based on truth versus based on a lie? And what you'll see is this one. It's early. It's really early, but why it's so hopeful is because the people that are seeing that are building on top of it.
And they're building together collaboratively.
They're building together.
We're not enemies.
And we're connected.
Yeah.
We're connected to people all over every person in the world is connected. And they're connected through a base layer of truth. what would society look like? It's incredible.
You know,
And then that path produces constant falling prices, but government gets smaller as a result because the only government that actually succeeds tells you the truth instead of a lie.
And also, if you or I travel to anywhere in the world, literally anywhere in the world, any major city, you put out on Twitter, I'm in such and such a bar tonight, any Bitcoiners want to hang out, and 10, 15 people come down. You know, even if outside of Bitcoin you have a completely different personality, you know you can sit there and talk all night and you'll be on the same page, with the same goal, on the same mission. I don't think shitcoiners really have that. I don't imagine ETH people say, any ethers here, and or Pulse Chain or Dentacoin people get together and they're all on that same page. I think they just hang out. But there is that kind of unifying mission where even if you don't 100% agree on some certain Bitcoin issues, you're kind of 85% there with each other.
And when you're in that, again, when you have a frame of reference around a bunch of people that feel like that and they're hopeful in building the future of the world, and then more and more people are because it's hard to understand at the base level. Remember, we experience the base level through abstraction levels of products designed on top. So our houses on top of the existing fiat system, we think they're going up in price, and we want to buy more houses to protect ourselves from money when it's actually the currency going down.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but we experience the value on top of there, and we don't, and it's so early in what's happening as products built on top of Bitcoin because it had to harden first. And this comes in layers. And so the value that's coming to society through the products and the type of technology that is going to bring immense value to society. And they won't think about Bitcoin at the core. They won't need to learn everything that we're talking about at the base layer. They'll just be experiencing value on things that give them tons of value on something based on truth. And it'll seem similar to what I ended up at. If you thought through, if you were in 1985 and you looked at the technology today, you would actually consider the technology today magic. If you actually, there's no way you could comprehend what we have today, what we take for granted today. In 1985, you would consider it that's mad. If somebody said what we just take for granted today, it's just natural, you'd think what are they on?
Yeah.
Right. Now play what's happening on Bitcoin. If people actually understood what's coming on this, it's going to be magic. Now that transition is going to be because people are going to be in this system and they're going to have a frame of reference of this system and everything in this system. Then the longer they live in this system and spend all of their time in this system, they're going to be yelling at the clouds. They're going to be marching. There's going to be proxy wars. It's going to get really ugly out of this system. But it
already is.
Yeah, but it gets a lot worse. I wish it didn't, but it gets a lot worse. Because, and in the new system, it's based on truth. It gets a lot better. It's really exciting.